Hello, welcome everybody. This is Christian from the Netherlands. As you all saw in the online webinar what we hosted today together with Wolfi, we're looking forward to do this in these difficult times at the moment. Now we are not completely locked down as you have at the moment in Dubai, but still more or less situation for us here is the same as you have. So what we try to do with these webinars is to show you a little bit more and give you a little bit more information about Lake. There will also some more information about Cleat Fit. So hopefully you want to learn a lot today about our products, about the products from Wolfi, the products from Niels. So before we go to the presentations, I will hand over to Wolfi. He will give a short introduction about himself, and then we go to Niels, who also will help out each other and what his presentation will be all about. Wolfi, up to you.
Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you, Niels. Very exciting to have this webinar with you guys. Wolfi's talks again in a slightly different format as we're used to it usually. But we're very exciting to learn obviously everything about shoes, and we really love the shoes from Lake as they offer a special fit. And I think with some adjustment tips from Niels about the cleats, I think that's going to be a good and interesting hour we're going to have ahead of us. We will come, or I will join a little bit later with some questions, but thank you very much for taking the time, and I hope we will all have a good time and learn a lot.
Thank you. Niels.
Okay. Yeah, good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for joining this webinar. My name is Niels. I'm from the Netherlands, but actually living in Belgium. And I work a lot with Christian. At least we work with the same customers, because what I'm doing is basically educating bike fitters and supplying material to bike fitters. And as part of that, in these difficult days, we do more and more webinars to get more people aware of the impact of shoe and cleat adjustments. I mean, it's not difficult, but I think it's quite often overseen. And that's what I would like to explain a little bit, like where can you do some quick gains and where do you really need to contact a specialist.
Thank you. Okay. When somebody have questions, there is the possibility to put in the question box on your screen. So everybody is in listen only mode. If you have questions, just type them in, and after my presentation, I will handle all the questions you send in. The same for Niels after his presentation. So if you have questions, just type them in and we will follow up with them later. I will show you now my screen, and then we go to my presentation. So everybody, good luck and enjoy this part. So we are Lake. Some I see at the audience some familiar names. Somebody knows already our shoes, but for them who don't know nothing about Lake, the company started in 1982, and the main focus and the only focus is on shoes. Lake has a big history with a lot of innovation. Now, some shoes are not really for Dubai market like the winter shoes, but it all started with the first road and mountain bike shoes in 1982. And one of the latest innovations is actually the moldable heel. This shoe is also available at Wolfi, which also can do the molding for you, which is a big advantage. So the whole part, what you see here, is moldable. Now, what's the biggest advantage of a moldable shoe? On the moment you pedal down, you can't move your heel. So you always have an optimum power on your pedal. It's a full kangaroo leather shoe with a moldable heel, available in different colors and also in some custom colors. So if you are interested, just pass by the shop for the right size. What is the latest innovation we have from Lake? The shoe is launched 2 years ago, and it's called 241 model. Now, what's the most important 3 points about the shoe? First of all, the whole side panels are flexible. So on the moment you have an odd shaped feet or whatever, it fits perfectly around your feet. Especially in a hot climate as you have in Dubai, especially in the summer, when your feet are expanding, also the material is expanding. Another unique point of the shoe is the shape of the upper. So the shoe is complete independent closure down and top. On the moment you have a really high instep, you see the little V over here, which makes it independent from each other, so you never have a hot spot on the top of your feet. Now, if you have extremely wide fit with a narrow heel, the shoe is moldable as well, so it fits always perfectly to your feet. Especially for the climates like you have over there, it's a perfect shoe. It's ventilated and it's really, really movable and adjustable to your feet when your feet expanding after a long ride in the heat. What's our background? And I think this is the most important part of the presentation, is that we are a cycling shoe brand. And our mission is to make the best fitting and most comfortable high performance cycling shoes in the world. Of course, we can do this by different ways. First of all, it is the material. We use a lot of different materials and we use for most of the shoes leather. Now, leather is of course the best fitting material around your feet and fits perfectly in warm climates. Another point, and that's something a bit more difficult to explain, but it's all about the last. And because we own our own last, and I will explain later what a last is, but because we have our own last, we can fit at least 95% of the riders. Now, to give you a bit more of an idea how we come to this last and how we come to this measurement and how you get the right shoe to your feet, is that you always take a measurement based on length. If you look at the left side of the measurement stick, and the width. Now, because we all do everything about the measurement, we can advise you based on your type of feet, which shoe fits the best for your feet. It doesn't always is the case that the most expensive shoe is also the best shoe for your feet. So because we always work with measurements and we have different lasts, and the last is based on a shoe shape, but that's something I will show you a bit later. Because we always work with a measurement, we give you the right shoe. Now, how we build up a last? A last is built on foot dimensions. Now, these are the average main points of somebody's feet. And to give you an idea what a last is, this is a last on the right picture. So if I go back to some sheets before, we first start with a measurement. Based on the measurement, on the length, on the width, and on the volume of your feet, we look at what the best shoe is for you. Now, if you have a bit of a wider feet, we go to a wider last. As you show on the picture, this is a 44 in the extra wide. Now, based on this, we offer 11 different lasts. So a last is actually a feet shape. Now, and how we come to that foot shape is what we showed in the last sheet. This makes the Lake shoe unique. And this is also why Wolfi and his staff is a big fan of Lake shoes, because we offer different models for different feet. So an expensive shoe has a different fit as a cheaper shoe. It's not the case that a cheaper shoe doesn't fit you, because in some cases, the cheaper shoe can fit you better as the most expensive shoe. That's why we always work with a measurement. And this is also why Niels will step in later, because we look for the perfect shoe pedal interface. Now, it starts with the shoe, and then it comes to the perfect pedal at cleat position, maybe with wedges or not, but that's something what Niels will explain later. But this is why we do this seminar together, so we have the perfect fit for your feet on your bike. To go a bit more in detail, if you look at the different widths, in general, we work with 3 different widths. It starts from 88 mil until 96 mil. And this is just a comparison with some other brands. Now, to make it a bit more visible for you, if you do a measurement and you have, for example, wide foot. Now, wide foot is most of the time an EE. So if you have 96 millimeters, is wide foot. And if you have 88 millimeters, then you have a narrow foot, which calls AB. Now, to make it even more visible, on the moment you have, for example, a foot with a width of 96 millimeters. And if you try a shoe on which has a normal shape from 88 millimeters, you see exactly where the black line is under your feet. This means that the shoe for you is way too narrow. You see on both sides of the black line that the foot will step over the black lines, and there where the foot's over the black lines, it can create a lot of painful issues. This can be blisters or hot spots or whatever, but it's very important to have this all together. So if you go back to the next sheet, this is how a shoe build up. So on the moment we start building a shoe, it starts from down to top. Now, if you start with, one second, if you start with from the sole, it starts with or a nylon sole or carbon sole. Now, if you have a mountain bike shoe, we still use real rubber soles. So on a slippy or on a wet road, it gives you a much better grip. Then we go to the upper part of the shoe. This can be from different materials. It can be leather or it can be Clarino, based on a model. We use different ways of leather. The entry-level shoes, they have full grain leather, and the top shoes, we use kangaroo leather. Some shoes have a moldable heel, and some shoes have an internal heel cup. If you go to the closure system, we always work with boa, and it can be a single boa with a strap or a double boa. All our shoes are handmade. We have our own factory in China, and if you see here on the picture, it really starts with the entry level of the inner side of the upper. Based on this, every part will be stitched together handmade, and it's also completely squeezed out by a machine, and then it will all stitch together till you have a complete upper, including the boa systems. After this, the shoe will be stretched out around the last, and then on a bonding machine, it will be bonded with the sole. As I said before, it can be a carbon sole or a nylon sole, that's depending on the model. What's another unique point about our shoes? It's a custom program. Because we offer different colors on a custom program, you can always match with your bike. Now, if you know Wolfi store, there are a lot of custom bikes. So what you can do, two ways. First of all, if you go to laycustom.com, you can build your own shoe based on different colors. So we have a standard color program which you completely build online till you have your final custom shoe. Now, if you want something really special, and if you look at the different social media channels from all Wolfi or from us, you see that a lot of people in Dubai made already a custom shoe with their own wishes on the shoe. We made some shoes with flowers, we made some shoes with names on the shoe, but we also made some shoes regarding squat bikes. So there are a lot of possibilities what you can do with your shoes. The only thing is, if you want to do something special with your shoes, you can't do it online. This is to avoid that you have to pay royalties on the shoe like I show you here from La Gazzetta. So this is a shoe based on the original paper, and actually the lines on the shoe are also from an original stage in the Giro d'Italia. So to have this in place, go to the store, come with the right files, and then we can check if there are no royalties involved, if we can make the shoe or we can't make the shoe. But this Lake Custom program is unique, and it can really match or with your jersey or with your bike. Now, what is so unique about Lake shoes again is there you can make a difference in store. So especially in store, and if you went to a store Wolfi, you always know that they start with a measurement with a stick. So when you go to store, they can offer for you the right models, they can offer for you the half sizes, and it all comes down to the right education of staff. So on the moment you go to store, every staff member can give you a proper measurement, and based on this measurement, they advise you which shoe fits you the best. And that can be all because we offer different lasts and we use different insoles where you can try on. So if you go to store and you check your feet and they make a proper measurement for you, then they give you the right size. Now, to give you a bit of more an idea, a lot of people found out that they have a lot of issues during riding. And especially in some hotter climates, a lot of feet are expanding. So if you feel that you have, for example, numb toes or hot spots or nerve pain or cramping, always go back to store and check your feet together with one of the members in stock, because it can be that your shoes are too small. If your shoes are too small, what a lot of people do, they buy bigger shoes to compensate the width. But on the moment you compensate the width, if you look at the cleats are not under your feet, but are way too high under your toes. Another problem is that on the moment you buy shoes which are too small, the closure system is not on the right place. So the closure system should be on top of your feet, but if the shoe is simply too big to compensate the width, the closure system is halfway down your feet. So you have to tie it up very well, which can clear or stop a right blood circulation. That are altogether gives a lot of painful riding, which is a shame, because probably you have a nice bike, you have a nice environment to ride in, and then you have a lot of painful feet. So if you found out that you have painful feet, always go back to store and check if they can measure your feet. This was for an overview to give you an idea what our shoes are and to give you an idea who is available for what. Now, if I go through the questions, I see some questions coming in. So let me check what we have. I have one customer here who is asking about 2-for-1. Now 2-for-1 is available in store. It's also available in the mountain bike shoe as well. And indeed, the mountain bike shoe is the same size as in the road shoe. Another comment is from Craig. He's a huge Lake fan. Good to hear. He bought a few pairs from Wolfi already, and currently he's running both MTB and road shoes. The only thing is that there is not much known about the brand, so he would like to have some more people riding on the brand, and he'd like to put some more effort on that people can use the shoes more. This is another question from Lars. Also have a pair of Lake shoes losing MX237. Another comment from Carl. Also very happy about the shoes. So until now, I only see a lot of positive reactions. Then there is a question from Kathleen. Love the Lake shoes. Question on the heel fit for women. Can this be altered to the fit narrow heel for women? We offer also women's last, correct? On the moment you have women's last, the front part is a bit wider. But if you want to have a more fitted heel, then go for a 332 model where the heel is moldable. So that should be my advice. Have a look in the store for a 332 if you want to have a narrow heel, because that has a moldable heel cup. There are some more in detail questions, but I will follow up with that questions in an email later. Otherwise, we'll have too much time for going through the questions. Okay, one last question. Is there a big difference between 402 and 403? That's from an old friend of us. It's Monty, live from Italy probably. Hi Monty. Yes, there is a big difference in 403. The sole is the same, only the closure in the front is way more further down. So if you have a little bit more narrow feet, the 403 fits much better. And a big improvement is the flexible carbon panels inside outside. And the big advantage of this, if you look at the closure, is more further down, and the closure up is the same as before, but with the moldable parts in the side panels, it gives a much better shape in the shoe, which is also much better performance when cycling. Thanks for the question, Monty. Say hi to everybody in Italy. These were the questions so far. If you have more questions, just type them in. I will hand over my screen now to Niels, who will start his presentation now. And if you have questions for Niels, again, just type them in and I will get the questions to Niels later on.
Okay, good afternoon. I will share my screen with you. Probably you can see my screen now. Can you, Christian?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, because I can't see my own screen, I'll just make this a little bit smaller. Good afternoon, welcome. Like I said, what we do is educating bike fitters and bike fit enthusiasts and physiotherapists and quite some other people on the position on the bike. We talk about saddles, handlebars, but we talk a lot about shoes. If you want to do our full education on cleat and insoles, it's a 4-day. We spend 4 days on it's a 4-day education if you want to do the whole thing. And why do we spend so much time on it? Because it's really important. And why is it so? Is it more important than the other points where you touch your bike? For example, your hands or your pelvis. It's not more important, but you're more restricted. If I have my saddle, and I've got a nice saddle here, and I've got a pelvis, yes, the idea is to put my pelvis here, but I still can put my pelvis a little bit further forward or backwards, or would like to, and I can still do this and this. The same with my hands. If I ride my road bike, I can put my hands here, I can put them there, I can put them there. But then it's my foot. I've got this little pedal. I clip in, okay, this is not compatible, and then that's where my foot needs to stay. So my bike determines quite a lot in the position of my feet, which is in real life absolutely not the case. You know, if you talk about, and I love to have stuff behind me, that's why I'm not in an office but in a kind of carton strap, because of all product lying here. This is a Shimano XT crank. I've used it, I rubbed it with my heel, and the distance between the outside of the cranks, called QFactor, is 174 millimeters or something like that. And then my pedals go on, and that's how far my feet will be apart. Just because my bike has decided that. And if anybody of you do running and would ever go for a running analysis, and the guy there would say, okay, you need to run and you need to keep your foot exactly 230 millimeters apart, because that's what is good for you, you would think he's crazy. Or if you go to a gym and put a weight in your neck and you would do squats, so you would, let's say, go down and up, and your instructor would say, no, you have to, your foot have to stand here. There's no other way. There they have to stand. You would say, hey, are you crazy? That's not the same for everybody. In cycling, quite often that is considered the same for everybody. Foot pedal interface is an adjustment in bike fitting, which is so often overlooked. And it affects dramatically your lower biomechanics. I dare to say that 90% of the saddle sorenesses or saddle complaints, if they're different left and right, so somebody has an issue with a saddle on the left side or only on the right side, about 90% of the cases are caused by the foot. So the whole movement starts at the foot, and not adjusting your foot right has a huge impact on the rest of your movement. And where do you need your foot? Because that's then the question. Okay, it's nice that I can say, hey, there's a guy from Belgium who says it's has a big influence. Okay, but that's information where you don't really, you know, you can either agree with me or disagree, but it doesn't help us, because if I say it's important, I need to come with answers. You know, where does my foot need to be when I'm riding a bike? And the answer is quite easy. Your foot needs to be where it wants to be. So we have to find out where it wants to be, because if you were able to put your foot in the position that it wants to have, you will have the most stress-free experience and the most efficient experience. So in order to do so, we'll go through the adjustments you can make with your cleat or with your foot. If you mount a cleat underneath a shoe, there are I just need to find the shoe. There are 5 adjustments you can make. You can move your foot forward or backwards. So cleat forward, foot backwards, foot forward, cleat backwards. The other thing I can do, I can move my cleats in and out. I can also tilt my shoes by using wedges. These are that's usually the yellow little things like this. They're thicker on one side than on the other. As you can see, if I put a few on top of each other, this is the thinner side, that's the thicker side, and they basically can tilt my shoe in either direction depending on how I mount them. I can also rotate my shoe, so I put my foot in this position or more in this position, and I can either lift one or the other one with products like these, which we call leg length shifts. So there's 5 different adjustments I can make after I've found the right shoe size. And in between, I would also recommend to put in the right insole, which is a whole other discussion, which I'm not going to touch here. But I highly recommend you to work with insoles that touch your foot as much as possible. And although I said I'm not going to touch it, I'm going to touch it a little because a lot of people mess up things. This is an insole. And if I shape the insole well, if I buy the right shape or I mold it well or whatever I do it supports my foot. It totally follows my foot. So my foot touches the insole everywhere. It touches, but it doesn't manipulate. So if I got a relatively low arch foot, so relatively flat foot, I would like the insole to touch it here, but I don't like the insole to push it up there. I would like support, no manipulation. So I would like my shoe or my insole to follow my foot all the time, which is not the same as what we see here in wedging, because I can have a shoe that really fits well with an insole that really follows my foot, but my foot can still hang like this. And then I'll get my clipless pedal. I'll get the other foot so it works better. So if my foot wants to be like this, so my knee is up here, my foot is like this, and I've got my clipless pedal, there's no other option than to tilt the foot. So foot tilt, like step 3 in the figure you see on your screen, is not the same as, now my camera's frozen for a while. Wait. Foot tilt is not the same as sorry, just I'm messing up the technology. Foot tilt is not the same as an insole. So an insole is to adapt the inside of your foot, of your shoe, to make a kind of 3D fitting out of it. And cleat adjustment is to make sure that foot is in a relaxed position when it's clipped in. The first adjustment, and it's the adjustment most people know about, and it's most talked about when we talk about cleat adjustment, is fore aft. You can either move your foot forward by moving your cleat backwards, or you can move your feet backwards by moving your cleat forward. What is the effect of moving your cleat fore aft? The further I move my cleat forward, so the further I move my shoe forward, the further I move my cleat backwards, the more stable my cycling will be. So if I would mount my pedal right under the nose of my shoe, I would be like, I would really like be pedaling like this. Lots of movement in my Achilles, lots of tension on my calf. So an unstable movement. The further I move my cleat backwards, the more stable my movements becomes. So yes, I recommend cleats to be mounted pretty far backwards. Quite often people would say, yes, but if I move my cleats backwards, my knee starts hurting. It's not true. And I'm not saying that the knee starts hurting, that's not true. I'm saying that moving your cleat backwards does not hurt your knee. There is another thing. If I have my cleat forward and then I move my cleat backwards, this part of my so from the pedal axle, so here's a you see a dot there on the white on white. It's not the best color, but the distance between my two fingers gets shorter if my cleat moves backwards. That part is also part of my saddle height. So if I move my cleat backwards, I need to drop my saddle. I need to lower my saddle because otherwise there is a chance that I kind of overextend or that my saddle height becomes too high so that I can't reach my pedal. And if I can't reach my pedal, I overextend my knee. And if I overextend my knee starts hurting. So if you have the experience, if you hear customers say, yeah, I tried the more backwards knee cleat position, but it didn't really work because my knee starts hurting. That could be true. But that's a sign that they forgot to adjust for the difference in saddle height. That's also why buying a pair of shoes by, some online store and mounting the cleats yourself without much knowledge isn't a good idea. I'm not against buying stuff online, but do it somewhere where you can call and they give you advice and they will help you forward and they will tell you these tricks. So be careful with your forearm for your shoes, for your cleats, and be careful that if you adjust your cleat, you need to adjust the saddle. And there is a kind of rule of thumb is your cleat 3 millimeters backwards is your saddle 1 millimeter down. It's a 3-to-1 rule. That has to do with the angles most foot are. It's not the same for everybody, but it works quite well. So 9 millimeters backwards is 3 millimeters down. The same if you would need to move your cleat forward, you have to move your saddle up for the same reason. Good. Where do we want to set up the cleat? Or basically, I have to be more specific. Where do we want to set up the pedal axle? Because that's my reference point. It's not this cleat. It's where the axle from the pedal is. And with this pedal, it's different. With a mountain bike style pedal, it's simple because the axle is also the center of the pedal. With a feet plate pedal, it is simple because the axle is also the center of the pedal. With a Shimano Look style pedal, it's a little bit more difficult because the axle is not by definition the center of the pedal. And with these type, these come from my little pedal museum. With the time pedal, it's even worse because it's harder to see where the axle is. So we always use the axle as a reference, and it's not where the axle is under the foot or under the shoe. It's where the axle is under the It's not where the axle is under the shoe. It's where the axle is under the foot. That's what you see here. So your foot is your reference. And that's also what Christian mentioned. If you buy your shoe a size bigger, there's actually more shoe here in front of your foot. And that's what a lot of people do because the shoe is too narrow and then they buy a bigger size so the shoe gets wide enough, but then there is more shoe in front of your foot. So your foot is relatively further down in the shoe and you're not able to move the cleat far enough backwards. So that's one of the reasons why you should always buy the right size shoe. And the right size is the size that fits you really well. For the cleat, we use two references. Every feet has, and everybody might. This is an easy point to recognize. Behind your big toe, there's a big, a piece of bone, a kind of ball. They call it the ball of the feet. It is the metatarsal head, MT they call it, MT1, metatarsal 1. That's this. Oh, I hope I'm still in the area.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a point there. You can easily see it when you have your shoes off, but quite often with most of the cycling shoes, you can also feel it through the shoe, because it's the big spot. You can feel it. And if you want to set up your cleats right, you put a tape on your shoe, you mark it there, because that is as far forward as we theoretically can go. Because before that, if you put your axle further forward, you're really in a soft piece of your feet, and it doesn't work. Usually we go way further back. There is a kind of, this is the most forward position I would do, and then there is a kind of backwards limit as well, which is called the 5th metatarsal head. It's the same bone, the same. It's not a bone, it's a joint basically, but then behind your pinky toe, behind your little toe, you can feel that as well. So a little bit more difficult to feel it, but if you know what you're looking for, you'll find it. If you mark those two, and then put the markers on the shoe, take your shoe off. So you mark them on the shoe. So if the shoe is too big, you'll find out that those points will be relatively far behind. And maybe you're lucky and you can move your cleats far enough back. And maybe you'll find out that you might set it up more forward than you would like because of the shoe issue. And then you can set up the axle. And you want to set up the axle close to the 5th metatarsal, close to that line. If we would even mount it further backwards, that's possible, but that's really the exception. Then you come in a situation, people would call it midfoot cleat position, for people that need extra stability. For example, somebody who has Achilles issues, since moving it backwards kind of releases the Achilles. So it might help sometime there to move it further backwards, but the point is you get your axle below your arch, so you need to be sure that you have a good arch support. If you go behind that 5th met head, you need to be sure you have the right insole in there, otherwise it won't work. And it's a little bit the same with moving forward. If people have feel pressure in their arch, it might help to move it a little bit forward. But usually you mount your axle pretty close to that 5th met head. For those of you familiar with speed play, these are the little speed play pedals. Lake has some shoes where you can mount them directly, but otherwise you need to use an adapter plate. This is this black thing. And you can see the good thing about the speed play adapter plate is there's quite some movement backwards and forward. And they even have, and I'm pretty sure Wolfi has those as well, they even have the speed play extender plate, which is an adapter plate, which allows you to mount your cleat really far backwards. So sometimes that helps solving an issue. I see my camera, yeah, there I am again.
Yep.
Okay. That's the fore-aft adjustment. It's relatively easy to do, but the biggest mistake made there is that people don't compensate for saddle height, and that's why a more backwards cleat position has some negative response to some riders, because usually they forget to lower the seat, and if your saddle is already almost too high, it will be for sure too high after you've adjusted it. So always compensate if you do a change in cleat position. Always compensate for saddle height. Second adjustment is inside out. It's amazing how limited. No, I know this is not a Lake shoe, but it's a Lukio cleat. And if I move it from all the way out to all the way in, it's about 8 millimeter. I can move it. 8 millimeters. Like I said, it's going to the gym and having to do a squat, going to the gym with 200 people, and you let them all do a squat, and you say you all have to put your feet in the same position. Oh no, it's not the same position. You're allowed to move your foot 8 millimeter in or 8 millimeter out. And then considering that if you're cycling 100K, you do about 30,000 squats. Because you move, you extend and bend your knee about 30,000 times. So this adjustment is extremely, there's not less adjustment. I'm surprised that there's not more injuries coming from this. But I'm also surprised if you start looking into it, how many people will benefit from making the adjustment, from either moving, quite often move the shoe a little bit further out. And there is a few pedal systems. Shimano makes them now. Speedplay makes them already for a long time. It also makes pedals with a longer axle, so you can put your feet wider apart, because that's what quite often is needed. Also, people that like a mountain bike, oh, the mountain bike rides better. Your mountain bike cranks usually are a little bit further apart than your road cranks. But how far apart do your foot need to be? What I would like to achieve, or what I would like to, there's two options. You know, there's basically three options. There's the right adjustment, and there is the option where your foot is too far out, so your foot is too far away from your bike, or your foot is too far in. This is the option where your foot is too far out, so your knee is basically closer to the bike than your foot at the top of the pedal stroke. This is the option, which we see more often, where the foot is too far in. Your knee is basically further out of the bike than your foot at the top of the pedal stroke. If you see this, a lot of people think that you have to move your knee. But the opposite is true. You have to move the foot. Your knee goes where it wants to go, because your knee is not locked. It's your foot that's locked. If my knee would like to be there, it would be there. My knee wants to be here. And sometimes it even goes further out because my foot forces it to go out. But in this case, I need my foot to go out, not my knee to go in. The same here. In this case, I don't need my knee to go in. I want my foot to go. I don't need my knee to go out. I need my foot to go in. How do I do that? By, in this case, first step will be slide my foot out. So put my foot under my knee. Basically, foot out, cleat in. And the other one, cleat out, foot in. That's what it says. In most of the fitting, there's lasers used as reference, or sometimes video capture. It doesn't really matter how you capture it. At least if you see it, it works. This is where the markers needs to be. That's more technical. This is what you would like to achieve here. This is the same picture as in the beginning. The foot is further out than the knee, so the foot needs to be in, which means the cleat needs to move out. And then you get the end situation. Okay, you don't always reach this, but you want to get as close as possible. And it's a little bit the same here. Here, quite often you need to go further than is possible with your cleats. And then there is different options on the market, which I will show you. Which are these ones: pedals with longer spindles, crank extenders. There's different brands of pedals. And quite often this is not tried, but if you try it, you would feel the improvement. The last part, I'm going to touch it quickly, because I don't think this is something you should do yourself. You should be aware of it. that if I would take somebody and lift them up under their elbows and would hang their feet down, quite often their feet would be like my hands now. So the big toes will be higher than the pinky toes. Which means if my foot wants to be like this, I'm a little bit, this is not, it's way less than this. But if my foot wants to be like this and I'm forced to clip in, this happens. And I'm kind of putting a tension on my feet. So what I would like to do with the wedging is not manipulate. I don't want a foot that wants to be here and push it up. I basically want a foot that wants to be like here, give the ability to be this. And that's the first big misunderstanding in wedging. Wedging is not about sending your knee in a certain direction. Wedging is supporting your foot so it can stay in the position where it wants to stay. If we have a foot with a picture like this, we're not pushing this side up to make it flat. We're basically filling the triangle to make it flat. Because if we don't do that, we get a movement like this. We get a knee that goes in and outwards, and we get a rotation on the femur. We can see that quite often, the way our pedals wear. You see this on your speed plate pedal, I'm sure you always want to keep your foot like this, but you can't. So the wear patterns should tell you a lot about what's going on. In your insole, you can see it. You would feel uneven foot pressure. So basically what you want to do is fill that little triangle there. I'm going to leave it. And that's what you do with the wedges. And basically the main goal is feel equal foot pressure. Okay, usually the equal foot pressure goes together with a nice straight movement of your knee, but the main goal is equal foot pressure. And those can be achieved by mounting a wedge between your cleat and your shoe. And there's different clear wedges. There's for the mountain bike, speed play, and for Luke and Kyo. These are the wedges that go between the cleat and the insole. The big advantage is they really work because your whole shoe tilts, so you tilt the shoe towards the foot. The other option is in the shoe wedges. It's the same idea. So you put a little tilted plastic piece, but you put them behind the front of your insole. You put them below them, and you kind of tilt the front of your foot. There is a few differences because these don't. Quite a few people compensate this by putting some tension on their feet. Which some people really feel nice, some people doesn't feel that good. And the other thing is volume. Not all shoes have enough volume to put these in. This is where you come from, and this is what you want to achieve. This is where you come from, and this is what you want to achieve. Okay, in 3 steps. We also have a wedged cleat. So for the mountain bike, because sometimes it's hard to mount a wedge between the mountain bike sole and the cleat, because the carbon soles are with 2 bolts are already relatively hard to mount. So there's also the wedge in the heel. So the heel wedge together with the forefoot wedge has about the same effect as a cleat wedge. When to use a cleat wedge, when a heel, and when a forefoot wedge, it's hard to say. It is theoretically the same, but it's not in real life. So some people feel a difference. I tend to say that the wedge in the shoe counts for half of one underneath the shoe. The one underneath the shoe is a little bit more firm, or what do you call it? Goes a little bit faster. So it's a bigger change than one in the shoe. That's what I would like to tell now, because I see the timing as well. These are the first 3 steps. The last step is rotation. That might be something for another time.
Okay, thank you, Niels. Yeah, we have some questions. and I don't think that are easy questions, so be prepared. First question.
You can forward the questions to me.
Sorry?
There's a trick to forward the questions, but
okay.
so I can actually...
If a Wolfi's customer rides both road bike and mountain bike, should they be looking to have the same QFactor replicated?
They should, yes, in theory, they should have the foot in the same position. It depends a little bit because sometimes the more you bend over, the narrower your hip angle becomes. So that has an influence sometimes. So if you sit a little bit more upright, usually you're not so sensitive to QFactor than if you sit more bent over. Let's say it that way. So on a tri-bike, the wrong setup for your QFactor usually is more of an issue than on your mountain bike.
Okay. Next one. Is it better to support the foot inside the shoe or externally on the cleat?
There's in the shoe you need to support your foot. There's no question about that. It's just that as long as your foot is not clipped in, I can hang my foot like this and it's perfectly supported. But as soon as I need to clip in, I need to do like this, and then I don't have support on this side because all the pressure goes there. So it's basically two different things. Inside the shoe is basically making sure your foot follows your shoe follows your foot. But then still I can, with my shoe, the same I can do like this with my shoe as long as I'm not clipped in. I can do this, I can do all type of rotation. But as soon as if my shoe foot wants to be like this, it's well supported now because my shoe fits well, not with this shoe. This is a shoe that doesn't fit me well, but let's be with this one. And then I clip in, and because of the clipping, because of the fact that I can't rotate my foot backwards, now I'll get more pressure on the outside. Correct. So it's two different things.
Yeah, it's
a question if I may. We work with Jabir mice as well, and obviously we have that technology to measure inside the shoe what's really happening inside the shoe. And it's very difficult to see, obviously, but the moment we have this technology inside where we do the pressure mapping, so we saw a lot of feet just moving inside the shoe, and we could only stabilize this with in-shoe wedges or with a good insole, that was not possible to do anything from the outside, because even if we tilted the shoe outside, it didn't really change the foot inside moving, once we fixed the shoe and the inside with the insole, then we could still maybe work with a little bit of a tilt, but that the technology helped us a lot to fine tune this. And obviously the tools Niels is providing with Bike Fit, the in-shoe wedges and the outside wedges are fantastic tools just to fine tune and optimize. That's why we feel as well the shoes, and obviously insoles, shoes and wedges is the perfect combination.
Exactly. And if you work with insoles, or if you do shoe, if you want to reach optimum in your shoes, you start with the right size of shoe, then you go to the right insole, and then you go to wedging and cleat positioning. It doesn't make sense that if you have a shoe that's too narrow and with the standard insole, it doesn't make sense to immediately start putting wedges on, because your foot won't react on it, because your foot can still move in the shoe or is either too tight. You first need to find the right. Your foot needs to be in that relaxed position, well supported. So relaxed position means a shoe that fits, well supported with an insole that follows. And then you will see, if that isn't the case, the effect of wedges and stuff like that is pretty minimum, because you move the foot, but your shoe doesn't move the same way as your foot. You move the shoe, but your foot doesn't move the same way as the shoe because the foot doesn't fit in the shoe.
Correct. Then we have another question from Najib. It's about inner soles. What type of material is using for inner sole? That's a bit of depending on which inner sole brand they are selling. I know in Wolfi they sell the Lake custom insoles, and they are from moldable carbon, and the front part is from foam. So it's a bit depending on what kind of insoles we are using for which material it is. That's good question for now. Wolfi, maybe you have some questions for us.
Yeah, I think we were thinking, and the girls were asking, when you're gonna come up with some fur shoes and with something special, we need something special in Dubai. No? When we need some spikes, we need some glitter, we need some things like this. Is this part of the custom program, or can we wait for something, some crystals maybe for the girls? So we need to look good, yeah.
Yeah. Now, of course, we can do a lot with the printing on the shoes. I think there are already some really nice designs made for Dubai. You can use the grow material in the tongue or in the heel, which is quite nice to make some rope combinations if you want. But most of the designs are really printed designs. I remember one shoe, the original design, which was made for a customer for Clinton, and I think that's one of the most beautiful shoes we made ever until now in the custom program. So some really nice things already done, and yeah, of course, some nice things can be done in the future.
Very good. And then maybe one more question is about sizes. When some people are in between sizes, rather a little bit a smaller shoe or a bigger shoe, some people are sometimes concerned. And maybe if you say there's a half size difference, what does really, what is your advice if somebody is in between sizes?
Yeah, it's a bit depending. Of course, we offer different sizes in one model. So if you have, for example, a wider fit feet left and smaller right, you can do one model in different sizes. You also can do, for example, a standard one in the right one and an extra wide in the left one. So it all comes down to first a measurement, and then you decide which shoe fits the best for that customer. But if you have a different shape, you can go for different widths or different sizes in one pair, and that's most of the time the best solution.
Okay, and then Niels, I have one more question. When it comes to triathlon bike fitting with cleats, would you recommend a different setup? Would you maybe rather go a little bit further back? What do you think about the midsole?
I wouldn't go further back, if I was honest, but quite often, because road cyclists are a little bit more traditional, I would advise a little bit further forward, but that's basically because they're not so open for putting them further back. You know, I would like, in general, I would go further back, which is easier to sell to a triathlete than to a road cyclist.
Mm-hmm.
So in practice, it would mean further back, but I would say, actually, I would go a little bit forward for my personal feeling with a road cyclist, because I know that they might be offended if I would say, okay, you need to go all the way back.
Yes, we feel that sometimes when moving back, it maybe is less activity in the calf, yes. So that maybe is a little bit less strain on the calf while riding. If you have a long distance triathlon and you keep your foot or your foot maybe a little bit more neutral if you're moving your cleat a bit back. So that was one idea we had.
Yeah, for sure. If you see a race across America, I think 2 years ago, all participants were on midfoot, because it kind of releases your calf. And with the really long distances, you know, race across America is multiple day.
Yes.
And your calf, because it's the smallest muscle in the movement cyclist, or one of the smallest, is usually the first one to collapse. Mm-hmm. Which is not an issue if you do a 3-hour ride, because it won't collapse in a 3-hour. But after 2 days or 3 days, compared to your super strong quadriceps and super strong hamstrings, your calf is usually your weakest spot. So the further you move it backwards, the less your calf needs to do. So the longer it will last. That's the idea there. And yes. The only disadvantage people tend to say, but it's not, I hear more and more that it's not true. What people tend to say is that your acceleration goes down a little bit. Mm-hmm. So moving it backwards makes it harder to accelerate. But there's no thoroughly study done if that's true. It's either also not proven that it's not true. So it's there's probably room to, but that's more. How would I say, it's a kind of feeling people have. If that's true, it is the feeling. Like if I move it backwards, I can do it myself as well. If I move my cleats backwards, I feel like I'm less fast out of the corners. But it's not, you know, that's not a scientific study.
Christian, and then one question about the kangaroo leather. What do you think between cow leather and kangaroo leather? Where's the difference? Why would you use kangaroo?
The kangaroo leather is the most soft and durable leather on the market. but also honestly the most expensive leather on the market. So that's why we only use in the top shoes. But yeah, if you also look, for example, to the top football shoes, they're also made from kangaroo leather. Yeah, it's simply the best leather on the market, but it's too expensive to use it in all models, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And if you compare your shoes to, let's say, something a bit more basic, where do you feel really is the benefit of leg? I think you spoke about all the different sizes and so on. So,
yeah.
And I think obviously the measuring process, but where would you say is maybe it's as well stiffness coming in? Where do you really see your brand being different to other brands in the market?
It all comes down to the right model for the right feet. So even in the entry-level models, we offer wide fit. Now, if you look on the measurement, and if you do a proper measurement, you will find out what people are in the black columns. Now, the black columns means that you have a wider fit feet. Now, on the moment you go for the entry levels, there we already offer a wide fit model, which is of course a huge advantage. As I explained and also Niels explained, when you buy shoes which are simply too big to compensate the width, you don't have a good pedal interface, which is a bit of a shame because it can cause you a lot of painful riding, but also injuries. So we make the biggest difference we make is in the fit, that we almost have for 95% of the riders the right shoe.
Yes, no, I agree with this. This is quite amazing. And we see it's quite interesting when we look at feet and different people. We have small people with wider feet and taller people with very narrow feet and so on. I think it's super important, and we get extremely good feedback, as we saw in the chat as well, from the customers.
Yeah.
And I think the product, I think really congratulations and thank you. I think you make a lot of cyclists very happy with your products. And I had the pleasure as well to meet some of the pro riders in Dubai, and they were speaking very highly when they're allowed to use your shoes. So that's really a great job, and it's always nice to see the passion you have for the product.
Thank you very much. Okay, now some more questions are unanswered yet, but we will follow up with the questions by individual emails. Now I want to thank Niels and also thank you, Wolfi, for giving us the opportunity to explain a bit more about our products. I know you are a big fan of our products, so I think it was good to give the more people a little bit more background about bike fit products, about leg shoes. So hopefully we all learned a lot about our products. And as me and Niels already said a couple of times, it's so technical and so important to have the right shoe, but also when you have the right shoe, to have the right cleat fit. So that's why we work very well with the guys from Wolfi, the team from Wolfi, because we know that they give you the right advice, and we also know they give you the perfect position on your bike in combination with the shoes. So thanks for this, Wolfi. I have no questions anymore. Do you have some questions, Niels?
Yes.
And thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us. It's great to do this.
I think I just want to tell people as well, everyone, thank you for coming and thanks for listening and spending your time with us. And I hope everyone stays safe. And I just want to remind everyone that tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock Dubai time, we start Wolfi Talks with Keeping Up with the Pros. And the first guest tomorrow will be the World Time Trial Champion and our good friend Tony Martin from Germany. And this is the start of a series. We have spoken to a lot of the riders, and they're really happy to give some cool stories from the peloton and about their career. So I'm really excited tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock with Tony Martin.
Thank you. Okay, everybody have a nice evening. Stay safe under the circumstances, and we all see you soon.
Okay.
Thank you, Christian.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for your help.
Bye.
Thank you.